So forget about the movies that have been made for superheroes. What superheroes and what qualities do they need to make a real good dramatic movie? Basically make a drama rather than an action movie. So obviously Batman is a given, considering he has pretty much the one dramatic movie, well, unless you count Begins and Rises or something, but he's a superhero who's been proven. But think about the rest of superheroes. I'm beginning to think that the more powers that you give a superhero, the harder it is to make them human, the harder it is to humanize them, to make a good drama around them.
I think you could do it with... I'm not saying necessarily I'd be a fan of it, but you could pretty much do it with all of the Avengers.
Could you?
The superhero Avengers,
a real
not
drama?
Like Hawkeye.
So pick one and explain it.
You'd probably have to change the cast.
No, you can change the cast. You got to keep the powers they have, though.
Yeah, but I mean, you're looking at you got Thor, which if you take out the comic relief and the flashiness of Chris Hemsworth and what's his name, Loki. I can't remember.
I don't know the actor's name, but I get what you're saying.
The guy who's banging Taylor Swift, Tom Riddleston, right? Hiddleston. That's it. Something. But he's banging T Swift.
I heard.
I didn't know he was banging T Swift.
That it's over, actually.
T Swift doesn't stay in relationships. Haven't we heard her music?
You can't tie her down.
PR stunts.
Anyways,
but I digress. Hiddleston's actually a great actor, so he could maybe even stay. But my point being is that there's a whole universe there outside of where their interaction with Earth that could lead to a whole bunch of possibilities.
So you don't think the mythology creates too much of a fantastical world to allow real character drama? See, I feel like the problem with Thor is how are you going to humanize him?
But that's the thing is, it's already humanized.
How?
All mythology, depending on your beliefs, are really man-made ideas.
Okay.
So they're based off human characteristics to begin with.
They are, but if you're making one movie and it's going to be based on Thor, a guy with a magical hammer which shoots lightning and he can recall magically in a world called, what is it, Astaroth or some shit, up in the clouds, how are you going to make that a real drama? How are you not going to get lost in special effects and superpowers and shit like that? And here's the big question is, when you come up with a villain, you have to rely on the villain having ridiculous powers, and that will cheapen the dramatic ability of the movie.
But here's the thing that you're losing sight of. Now, when you picture this fantastic world of power and creation, first off, you're taking out the fact that, his people have similar powers, not necessarily to his level, but the other nations, tribes, whatever you want to refer to them, also have their own unique powers. So in this world, though it's fantastic to us, this is something that would be in their world considered the norm. So
I get that, but you have to explain that to the viewer.
Yeah, but
and you'll piss away so much time world building that you lose that time for character development. And that's the reason why Superman hasn't been good. They waste so much time building this world and teaching us about this world. That comes at a cost. If you're going to show us this world and you're going to show us how his powers work, those are two huge things you have to do. You've now lost all that time to develop a character.
But at the same point, you can use that to develop the character, because a lot of times you're going to have these places that they're going in between that maybe key moments.
True, but
are going to be revealing parts of them.
When you're world building, when you're explaining how the world of mythology works in Thor, how will you develop a character during that?
Shit, you could do it with a 30-second monologue.
No, you can't. You cannot do good character development in 30 seconds.
Not the character development.
Oh, the world
development.
Again, it's going to be very. You're going to introduce too many plot holes if you gloss over it. I think the more power you have, the harder it is. For that reason, you have to introduce too much bullshit. Superman is a very cool concept. I love Batman v Superman's weird God comparison, but But they still, in Man of Steel, they pissed away so much time showing us Krypton and what Krypton was like. But they have to, because we wouldn't fully understand the superhero. Same with even Iron Man. We have to explain his company, explain his wealth. He hasn't just inherited the wealth. It's not like he doesn't do shit like Bruce Wayne, who basically just inherits his wealth and goes off into wherever the hell he went and becomes an expert. Another movie that I don't necessarily was good as a complete movie, but I think was a good part, and you're going to cringe at this because I remember watching this movie with you. Watchmen. Dr. Manhattan actually brought a very interesting dynamic. We got to see, listen, listen. So grow up. You have one. You've seen it all the time.
It's not that they include his penis. It's that he is standing there and it is unnecessarily moving from side to side.
I agree. He could have been wearing underwear in those scenes, but all right,
why is it moving?
Let me talk. Let me talk. So it's very interesting to see he has more power than Superman. He is pretty much the most powerful superhero that I know of in a movie. And his arc in Watchmen was awesome. We got to see him stop caring about everyone in his life because he feels as though he's risen above the entire existential world. And he goes to Mars and he does whatever the hell he wants. And it's so deep and so interesting to watch how he mentally evolves with that power. So I think the two ways to make a very high-end drama on a superhero is either A, not many powers with a very limited backstory, or B, ridiculous power to a point where the character can simply evolve. But when you have something in the middle, like Thor, like Captain America, like Spider-Man, like Wonder Woman, like all these traditional heroes that have like one cool power, the Flash, and then, you know, they struggle through a linear plot device, you lose so much with that. Just trying to develop all those things at once.
When you think about it, they did a lot of development in Watchmen.
They did. And I think Watchmen is underrated.
Backstory and...
They did, but that backstory was to develop characters, not to develop powers. We don't even understand powers until almost the end of the movie.
Which is something that you could do similarly with something like Thor.
True, you're right. You could try to do that with Thor. The difference, though, is Watchmen was still based in a world, in our world. It was an alternate history. It was an alternate history. But Thor is a whole different world.
When you think about it, they take that time to go through all these superheroes' plot lines and their histories that led to this point at the beginning of that movie. And they use that with other things to create the universe that they're in. And you could do something very similar with something like Thor.
But I think if you make Thor more like Dr. Manhattan and less like Iron Man or the other Avengers, you make him, because he is a god, make him ridiculously powerful. Make him lose that connection and try to find it again. Make him lose the human aspect and try to find it. A very similar Dr. Manhattan arc. And I think you could pull it off. Batman versus Superman again tried very hard to have intricacy, you know, and something.
Watch me now, watch me now, watch me now, watch me now, watch me now.